is Baseball Hall of Famer, 14-time All-Star, Johnny Bench.
We tried to break out the windows. We would break out the windows across the street. So, I mean, Mickey comes up to me. I'm over there, and he said, "Hey, John, let's go have a drink." Mickey's asking me to go have a drink.
Johnny Bench is nearly 80 years old. When people look at his life, they might see sadness. He's a single father in his late 70s, raising young boys. There's also a feeling that he was robbed. Bench himself said he wished his 1972 lung surgery would have never happened. He said only then he could have had a really good career. But this isn't a story of sadness or what-ifs. It's a story of strength. To understand the man who now finds his greatest purpose as a Hall of Fame dad, you have to understand the man who was defined by his scars. He was a man who was repeatedly broken by fate, by the game, and by his own body. Each time, he pieced himself back together. This is the story of the challenges that forged him. His story starts in Binger, Oklahoma. It was a tiny, windswept town where hard work was a way of life. A young Johnny Bench spent his time picking cotton and delivering newspapers. His father, Ted, was a former semi-pro player who drove a truck for a living. Ted decided Johnny's fastest path to the majors was as a catcher. This wasn't just a suggestion. It was a mandate that would set the course for his entire life. While other boys dreamed of hitting towering home runs, Bench was taught the grueling craft of catching. It was a role that demanded sacrifice, intelligence, and a unique capacity for absorbing punishment. This path demanded toughness. Life provided that in brutal ways. Before he was even drafted by the Cincinnati Reds in 1965, the brakes on his high school team bus failed. The team was returning from an out-of-town game. At an intersection, the bus careened out of control. It jumped a guardrail and rolled violently down an incline toward a ravine. As chaos erupted around him, Bench hit the floor and clung to the bottom of a seat. When the mangled vehicle finally came to rest, his feet were hanging out of the back door. Two of his teammates were dead on the hillside. The event profoundly sobered him. It left him with a deep reluctance to form close friendships, a protective measure against future loss. Just over a year later, in 1966, fate tested him again. He was playing for the Reds minor league team in Buffalo when he suffered a broken thumb. He was sent home to Binger to heal while driving on a 4-lane highway. He pulled out to pass a bus. He was met by a drunk driver in an Oldsmobile careening toward him on the wrong side of the road. The head-on collision was catastrophic. Bench was lucky to escape alive. Miraculously, he had no broken bones. However, the injuries contributed to chronic back problems that would plague him for the remainder of his career. He had faced death twice before he was 19. This gave him a perspective that few could understand, having confronted the sudden and arbitrary nature of death. The pressures of a baseball game were put into a different light. No matter how intense the game was, it could never compare to what he had already survived. This mental strength would allow him years later to perform at an MVP level while secretly harboring the fear of a tumor on his lung. The foundation for that incredible display was laid in the wreckage of a bus and a car on the back roads of Oklahoma. He even turned his injuries into new ideas. That broken thumb in 1966 was a turning point. His throwing hand was constantly exposed to foul tips and wild swings. A great throwing arm was useless if the hand attached to it was perpetually injured. Taking inspiration from Chicago Cubs catcher Randy Hundley, Bench began to experiment. He started catching one-handed, tucking his unprotected throwing hand safely behind his back. At the time, this was a radical departure from tradition, but Bench's success soon made it the universal standard. Catchers at every level of the game now use this technique. He is credited with pioneering the modern hinged catcher's mitt. He was also the first catcher to wear a batting helmet backward while behind the plate. Each innovation was a direct response to a painful experience. He didn't just play the position, he reshaped it in the image of his own survival. It's amazing how his hardest moments defined his legacy. What do you think is the most overlooked part of Bench's early career? Let us know in the comments. If you're enjoying this story, hit that subscribe button. His rise to greatness was fast. After a brief debut in 1967, he exploded onto the scene. In 1968, he won the National League Rookie of the Year award, becoming the first catcher in either league to earn the honor. He caught in 154 games, a record for a rookie at the position. He recorded 102 assists, a mark of defensive dominance not seen from a catcher in over 2 decades. He was not just a promising newcomer, he was an instant revolutionary. By 1970, at just 22, he had one of the greatest seasons ever for a catcher. He became the youngest player at the time to win the National League's Most Valuable Player award. He led the major leagues with 45 home runs and 148 RBIs. He posted a batting average of 293. He was the engine of the Big Red Machine, leading a lineup that included future Hall of Famers like Tony Perez and Joe Morgan. He was, without dispute, the best player in the game. Then came the collapse. The 1971 season was a total slump. His batting average plummeted 55 points to a dismal 238. Even more shocking was the evaporation of his run production. His RBI total fell by an almost unbelievable 87 runs. From 148 to just 61, as one analysis noted, many players would be thrilled to drive in 87 runs in a season. Bench's Bench's production had dropped by that entire amount. The Reds stumbled to a 79-83 record, their only losing season of the entire decade. The reigning MVP began to hear the unmistakable sound of boos from his home crowd at Riverfront Stadium. The reason wasn't just physical. Bench spent much of the season playing through nagging injuries. Mentally, he was lost, constantly tinkering with his batting stance and grip. The root cause lay in the demands placed upon him in the offseason. He was mentally and physically exhausted from a busy tour after 1970. He had developed bad habits at the plate. The hidden story is this: that tour included Bob Hope's annual Christmas trip in December 1970. Fresh off his MVP season, the 22-year-old found himself on a tour that included Vietnam. There, on Christmas Day 1970, he stood on a stage in Long Binh, trading jokes with Bob Hope and entertaining thousands of American troops embroiled in a deeply divisive war. According to first-hand accounts, the show's conclusion with the collective singing of Silent Night was profoundly moving. There was not a dry eye anywhere. The 1971 slump was a delayed, complete breakdown. It was a convergence of the physical toll of his position, the mental drain of his celebrity, and the profound psychological weight of his experience in a war zone. Instead of a restful off-season to recover, the young superstar was plunged into an emotionally charged environment. The boos he heard in Cincinnati were from fans unaware of the complex human crisis unfolding before them. Bench roared back in 1972. He entered the season with renewed focus. A Sports Illustrated cover showed him grimacing with effort under the headline, "Johnny Bench Bears Down." He recovered his power with a vengeance. The struggles of 1971 vanished as if they had never happened. He led the league with 40 home runs and 125 RBIs. For his spectacular rebound, Bench was awarded his second National League MVP trophy in 3 years. He joined the legendary Roy Campanella as one of the only catchers to win the award multiple times. He had climbed back to the top of the mountain. What no one knew was that he had done so while staring into an abyss. But this comeback was one of the toughest performances in sports history. During a routine team physical in August 1972, in the thick of the pennant race, doctors found a spot on his right lung the size of a silver dollar. In an era of less advanced medical technology, the immediate fear was cancer. The overwhelming concern was that the growth was cancerous. Bench made an impossible choice. At his own insistence, he kept his condition a complete secret from the public and even most of his teammates. He delayed any surgical intervention until the season was over. For the last 2 months of the regular season and the entire postseason, he played knowing that a potentially fatal disease could be growing inside him. The psychological burden is difficult to overstate. Every at-bat was executed under this shadow. Every pitch he called was made with this weight. Every play at the plate was completed under the shadow of his own mortality. Yet his performance never wavered. In fact, under this unimaginable private stress, he delivered one of the most clutch moments of his career in the decisive Game 5 of the National League Championship Series against the Pittsburgh Pirates. With the Reds' season on the line, he stepped to the plate in the bottom of the 9th inning. With this secret terror inside him, he hit a dramatic game-tying home run. The Reds would go on to win the game and the pennant moments later on a wild pitch. It was a moment of supreme athletic achievement made all the more legendary by the secret fear he carried to the plate. His second MVP award is arguably a far more impressive feat than his first. It stands as the ultimate testament to the mental armor he had forged in the aftermath of those accidents in his youth. The ability to completely wall off a life-threatening personal crisis from his professional performance required extraordinary mental strength. He had faced death before and had developed a mechanism to function through the fear. The 1972 season was the ultimate test of that learned resilience, a quiet masterpiece of courage painted on a national stage. He had the surgery on December 11, 1972, at Cincinnati's Christ Hospital. The spot was not cancer, the lesion was benign, but the operation was brutal. The procedure was profoundly invasive. Surgeons had to make a long incision across his chest, cutting through layers of muscle, nerves, and bone to access his lung. Bench emerged from the hospital, relieved that his life was not in danger, but he was also, by his own admission, fundamentally changed. This is the core of his robbed career. In the years following, Bench has spoken with startling honesty about its impact. It was never Johnny Bench anymore, he stated in a documentary. He said he never was the same player afterwards. He directly links the decline in his signature power to the physical trauma of the operation. They cut the ribs, they cut the bones, they cut the nerves, he explained. He was describing the permanent damage done to his torso and the mechanics of his swing. In one of his most revealing statements, the first ballot Hall of Famer said, "I wish the lung surgery would have never happened, so I could have had a really good career." This was not the voice of a man satisfied with his place in history. It was the voice of an artist who felt he had been robbed of his finest tools in his prime. The power was gone, the stats prove it. His average home runs dropped by 34% after the surgery. His RBIs dropped by 20% for the rest of his career. The numbers provide undeniable validation for his feeling that he was never the same. To most fans, his statement seems absurd. He's in the Hall of Fame. He won 2 MVP awards, but to Bench, there was always the ghost of what could have been. But this is where he became a true champion. Robbed of his peak physical gifts, he was forced to change. He had to rely more heavily on his intelligence, his experience, and his unshakable will to win. He became a master craftsman. Thurman, a tactical hitter who rose to the occasion and did exactly what was required to win. Pre-surgery, his success was built on overwhelming natural talent. Post-surgery, his greatness was a matter of sheer will. It was after this surgery that he led the Big Red Machine to its greatest heights. They won back-to-back World Series championships in 1975 and 1976. The crowning achievements of the dynasty, his evolution culminated in the 1976 World Series against the New York Yankees. While his regular season had been hampered by ailing shoulders, he elevated his game on the biggest stage in a dominant 4-game sweep. Bench was named the World Series MVP, batting an amazing .533 with 2 home runs and 6 runs batted in. In a head-to-head matchup with rival catcher Thurman Munson, Bench was masterful, soundly out-hitting the Yankee captain. This performance was the ultimate evidence of his transformation. The surgery had catalyzed his evolution from a great player into a great champion. This brings us back to his life today. His personal life was always rocky. For years, Bench was hailed as baseball's most eligible bachelor. He had 4 marriages. His first marriage was to Vicky Chesser, a toothpaste model. There was a messy public divorce in 1976 after just over a year. The details that emerged were bizarre and revealing. She claimed that on their wedding night, Bench brought his best man home to play ping pong. The most telling anecdote involved an offer for her to pose nude for a magazine. Chesser claimed she rejected the idea, but Bench encouraged her to accept it, saying, "Why not? It's good money." Bench denied the accusations, stating they were motivated by her disappointment over the alimony settlement. He would later marry Laura Kwiatkowski in 1987, with whom he had his first son, Bobby. They divorced in 1995. A marriage to Elizabeth Benton followed in 1997. In 2004, he married Lauren Bayaki, the mother of his 2 youngest sons. This pattern of marital instability stood in sharp contrast to the enduring consistency he displayed on the field. His oldest son, Bobby, has spoken candidly about the immense pressure of growing up in the shadow of a sporting icon. "It was high school where I truly realized how much pressure is on me," Bobby said, reflecting on the consequences and the toll that takes on you. He recalled hearing snide remarks from coaches about being Johnny's son and was cut from his high school team 2 years in a row. For those closest to him, the legend could be as much a curse as a blessing. His final change came in 2017. His 4th marriage ended over a simple disagreement. Bench wanted to move back to South Florida. Lauren did not want to relocate. The divorce left Bench, then approaching his 70th birthday, with primary custody of their 2 young sons, Justin and Josh. At an age when most contemporaries were enjoying quiet retirement, Bench embarked on the demanding journey of full-time single fatherhood. This is the sad life from the title, but is it? He embraced the role of Mr. Mom. His daily routine became waking at 5:50 in the morning to do laundry, preparing meals like chicken piccata and meatballs, checking homework, and managing doctor's appointments. A 2018 Sports Illustrated story dubbed him Mr. Mom. An MLB Network documentary featured this phase of his life. He described the portrayal as perfect. He created a morning hug ritual with his boys. This late life transition reframed his entire value system. Bench said that being considered a Hall of Fame, Dad would be more important than anything else he has ever achieved. This was not the talk of a man burdened by circumstance. It was the talk of one who had found a new, more profound purpose. After a life of public glory and private pain, he found his deepest purpose. The man defined by scars found his final, greatest victory in the quiet, demanding role of a single father. His legacy is ultimately a dual narrative. On one level, there is the pristine record of the statistical titan, the revolutionary defender, the field general of a dynasty. But his more enduring story is told by the scars. He is the young man who survived 2 horrific accidents and channeled that trauma into an unbreakable will. He is the superstar who fell from the pinnacle, endured the boos of his own fans, and climbed back to the top. He is the champion who played through the private terror of a life-threatening diagnosis. He is the athlete who had his body permanently altered, losing his power only to adapt his game and lead his team to its greatest triumphs. And finally, he is the man who found his most meaningful role as a single father. Johnny Bench's greatness isn't just in his stats, it's in everything he overcame. His greatness is found in everything he was forced to overcome to accomplish it. The scar on his chest from the 1972 surgery is a permanent reminder that his path was not one of effortless dominance, but of painful perseverance. Johnny Bench redefined his position, but it is his lifelong refusal to be defined by his hardships that constitutes his truest and most inspiring legacy. What do you believe is his truest legacy? Is it the revolutionary catcher or the Hall of Fame dad? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. Thanks for watching, and please subscribe for more stories behind the legends of sports.